The first thing that we think of when talking about Michael Jordan is surely his scoring abilities and high-flying dunks. Some people, including myself, believe he is the greatest scorer of all time. That has led some people, including former NBA players, to believe that he was only great at that. Apparently, they never saw this player play or even glanced at his numbers to see just how great he was in other aspects of the game. There are other great videos that discuss his defensive approach and the methods he used. But this video is going strictly by the numbers to prove that he was not only great at defense, but that he was the greatest perimeter defender ever. Let's first talk about his all-time rankings in some of the defensive categories. He ranks 3rd all-time in career steals per game and total steals, 21st in defensive win shares, and 24th in defensive box plus minus. Here's the crazy part about where he ranks in career steals. He played a total of 1,072 games for his career. Jason Kidd, who was 2nd in steals, played 1,391 games. John Stockton, who was the all-time leader, played 1,504 games. That's 432 more games than MJ played. We're talking about a little over 5 more seasons. So let's do the math and see where MJ would have landed if he had the longevity that Stockton had. If we take his career average in steals, which is 2.3, and multiply it by 432, we would add about 993 more steals, which would easily make him the all-time leader. That gives us an idea of how legendary he was at that specific aspect. So let's talk about his prime and what he accomplished on the defensive end of the floor. He led the league in steals per game 3 times in his career. Only Chris Paul led the league in steals more times. However, Alvin Robertson, Allen Iverson, and Michael Ray Richardson also led the league in steals 3 times. In the 1987/88 season, he averaged a career high of 3.2 steals per game. That is tied for the 4th highest mark in league history. He is one of 8 players to average over 3 steals per game. But let's talk about a specific game that showcases how great he was at stealing the ball. During that season, he had 10 steals against the New Jersey Nets in just 27 minutes of play. Keep in mind that the all-time record is 11 steals, and he nearly broke that record in just 1/2. He could have shattered that record if he played the full game. But that's not all that he did that season that is worth mentioning. He averaged 1.6 blocks per game, which is the highest average by any guard in NBA history. In the previous season, he averaged 1.5 blocks per game, which is the 3rd highest by any guard. Speaking of blocks, did you know that he is the all-time leader in career blocks by any guard? There's this silly thing that people say, that Dwayne Wade is the greatest shot blocker by any guard in history, when the reality is that the numbers don't back that argument up at all. That title, in actuality, belongs to MJ. But let's go back to the 1988 season. He produced a 4.2 defensive box plus minus, which was the highest in the league. But here's another interesting factoid about that specific stat. That is currently the 8th highest mark in league history. It's no wonder that he won the Defensive Player of the Year award that season. And on top of that, he also won the scoring title. He averaged 35 points per game. The type of motor that he had to have to exert that much energy on both ends of the floor is incredibly impressive. In fact, he's the only player to accomplish that feat in the same season. Oh, and he also won the MVP award. But you know, that's neither here nor there. Now let's talk about his defensive win shares. He is the only non-forward/center to produce a defensive win shares of 6.0 or higher since the merger, which he did twice. We're not counting the 60s and the early 70s when the efficiency of the offenses was dreadful, and it benefited players like K.C. Jones. Now for the icing on the cake. Let's talk about a few more accolades that he has. He has 9 All-NBA Defensive First Team selections, which is tied with Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Garnett for the most in history. He's one of 3 players to record over 200 steals and 100 blocks in one season. He's also the only player to do it twice. That's a lot of defensive records that he holds, more than enough to say that he's the greatest perimeter defender in NBA history. So if you thought these numbers were interesting and you are a stats nerd like me, well, there's a reference guide that I know you're gonna love. I got all these numbers from this book titled The All-Time Greatest NBA Book, counting down the 50 greatest teams, playoff runs, playoff moments, and the 100 greatest players. The thing that people compliment the most is the extensive research and the large number of stats that this book contains on the players and teams. It's available on Amazon, Apple, and Kobo. The links are in the description box for you to get your copy today. Thanks for tuning in and for your support. Till next time.